Good morning, Mr. America.
Good morning. We're into day 3. Everything's going pretty well, so we're not too stressed at this stage. We're going to start on fuel cell.
Yeah,
It had a fuel cell in it, but we pulled it and put one that we bought that takes injection, 3 pumps in the tank. So we're just going to swap the tanks over and tidy up a lot of the pretty poor fitment that's happened previously. And
I think Edward Scissorhands put the last cell in it.
Yeah.
It's far out. There's some pretty bad damage on the boot floor.
Battery cable runs under the car, which is not a great idea in my opinion, so I'm going to pull that out and put it through on the inside of the car instead, so it's protected. And keep working.
Alan, tell me why you don't like running battery cables under the car.
Because this is a live cable, and if there's any like road damage, there's lots of heat under the car. There's lots of mechanical things operating under there, and if you damage that cable and it grounds out, the cable will glow red and set fire to things.
Burn the car to the ground.
So that cable that's being used now is like welding cable. Is that suitable to use or not?
Yeah, it'd be sweet.
It's just putting the welding in front of cable.
I like that colour green, hey? The standard colour?
Well, it's a standard colour, but I don't know if that's the original colour for the car. Because it's got this, like this is the Calypso green or blue, but then the front of the car's got like a more dark blue or dark green, so I don't know if maybe it was because they had like a forest green as well.
Yeah, okay.
Because if it's that colour, they were mad for painting it black, but if it's a forest green, whatever.
Is that a rare colour?
That's a pretty rare colour, yeah. All the Mustang purists will cry tears into their cups of tea over that one.
It's a bit late for that, isn't it, with Mustangs?
What?
Most of them have been
Destroyed now.
Have you seen the boot floor?
Yeah, I know, it's terrible.
Oh damn, you weren't wrong, Benny. That is Edward Scissorhands spec.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Dude, look at that.
How bad is it?
It's like the guards on that Subaru Ute we did a few years back.
Back in 1963, there was a bloody shortage of files.
There's a shortage.
No shortage of tetanus.
There's a shortage of Mustang boot floors that were intact as well. Far out. It just makes me angry looking at it. C16.
Oh, whoops, cut out too much.
Genius level fabrication.
Plan of attack is just cut the whole floor out. We're going to make some steel frame for the tank to sit on. Then we'll probably sheet it out later, but for now we'll just get it mounted in its final home. Then that means we can start plumbing stuff and it'll be all sweet. Ow.
Quite the square element.
Have to do what we can do. We've got the fuel cell support frame in the car. It's welded in there. We are going to put a tow bar on it, so we may have to trim off parts of it because it mounts where the tow bar mounts, but we've accounted for that. We knew that was going to happen, so that'll be a later job. We're not going to worry about sealing in the cavity as yet. That'll be when we've got nothing else to do because it's not imperative to get the car running. So now we're going to move on to fuel filter and flex fuel sensor. Mount them, plumb up, in and out, and we're going to put some bulkhead connectors that go through the boot floor down into the underside of the car to run up the front to meet the lines that Benny's already made up the front.
Typically on most sort of moderate to high power vehicles, you're still only really going to run a -6 fuel return line. Because this thing circulates so much fuel, we've opted to run a -8 return line. It may or may not be overkill, but we're working on the theory that on this particular thing, a little bit too big is probably not going to be a massive issue. The compounding problem to that is we can only run up to -6 into a flex fuel sensor. So something I worked out or developed on the Cresta is like a sample tube. So we use this T-piece fitting. It's like a straight -8 female to male. And then we put -6 out of the side of it. It's just like an NPT to -6. And then you can basically run it straight to your flex fuel sensor. So we've got one on the bulkhead fitting that's on the floor of the boot floor of the Mustang. And the second one actually goes on the top of the fuel cell. So we've effectively got 2 return lines inside of the boot. One goes straight from the floor to the tank, and the second one runs via the flex fuel sensor. So nice and simple, and a good little way to be able to run a flex fuel sensor on a 1,000+ horsepower car without having to run all the fuel through your sensor.
This acting is hard.
Oh, about that time, hey chaps.
Shut the door, it's hot out
What?
there.
What up?
Where's your beer, Benny?
I've had my token beer for the day.
Where's my beer? That's my question.
You've already drunk it.
This is John, everyone. John's the gun fabricator.
Hello?
And we got Mr. America over here.
Mr. America. This is Nick. How are you, Nick?
Good, how are you?
Good, mate. What's the dog's name again?
Brody.
Brody.
Steve.
Stinky dog. Give us a wrap up of the day, Alan. What's going on?
I got swamp ass. Bit of hot metal fell on my eyelid.
Not in his eye though.
I wasn't wearing safety glasses, but my eyelid saved me, so it's all good. That was a bit painful.
The
but
safety
we
squid.
made some stuff.
Yeah, we had a pretty successful day today, actually. It was good. I
Yeah, it
think.
started off a bit slow because we had to go and buy metal, and then they don't cut anything here except for tube.
And then we took like
No,
2
they
hours
cut
at
it.
lunch.
They don't cut sheet.
Only $5.
They don't cut sheet though.
All they have is a bandsaw.
Yeah.
Horizontal bandsaws. All they
And it
can
only
cut
costs
is
you
like
$5 to
if
cut
it's-
it.
If it's wider than this, they can
Only $5.
Oh, mate was moving real fast too, eh?
No, they would not. You know what motivates people here? Nothing.
So,
But we did see a squirrel at the sushi shop.
Yeah, we had sushi again
I
today.
chased it, and it wasn't even scared of
he
me.
had burgers at the sushi joint.
That was fantastic actually. That was probably the best burger I've had in a long time.
It was pretty
Except
good.
for a wishbone.
Except it took like
17 days.
45 minutes to
Yeah, nothing motivates people here, eh? It's crazy.
So it's Friday. We back here tomorrow or what?
Yep. Back tomorrow. We got the fuel cell in today. We got it plumbed. We got all of our boot plumbing done. We made our fuel cell cradle, or Al did. I'm dying. So tomorrow I'm going to run the -8 and -10 from the back to the front, and we'll P-clip all that to the floor, and Al's going to start wiring. We're going to run our engine loom through the firewall. We're going to run our battery cable in the cabin,
Can't wait to crawl around underneath the swampy
dashboard.
roll cage equipped Cabin.
Bag's not.
Sick.
Until tomorrow. See you, homies.
Bye.
Have a great time.
Bye. Have a great time. Why do you always start work when I don't have the camera on you?
Because shit needs to be done. We're in a time frame.
It's like Discovery Channel.
Yeah. So we're just starting off with the fuel lines to the front. Relatively simple job, but still takes a couple of hours to do it properly. Benny's modifying some saddles that hold the two lines together, so they hold the lines together but also mount to the floor. We're going to put some 5mm nutserts through the bottom of the car, modify some of this terrible subframe crap that the thing's got so they go through without rubbing themselves to death like they previously were. And then, yeah, we've got tons of other stuff to do. We're going to mount the two transmission coolers. We're running twin coolers. That's what the Cresta runs. Dragweek is incredibly hard on high stall converted cars because of the road driving. So the more transmission cooling you got, the less time you have to spend on the side of the road. Shout outs to Real Street. So yeah, let's get into it.
We've got most of our AN plumbing done on the vehicle. We've just finished running the fuel lines from the back of the car to the front. So that's now one line all the way from the tank that comes all up to our reg. The supply line's a little bit different. It actually splits at the bottom of the engine from dash 10 into two dash 8s, but we've got that all mounted to the bottom side of the car now. So Alan started on some wiring in the inner guard there, and I'm going to go back into the trunk and finish the breather box for the fuel cell.
In the trunk?
In the trunk.
Not the boot?
I'm so used to translating, it's just rubbing off everywhere. Good like you.
That's where all the junk is, bro.
Squirrels!
What you do is you put wires through, and then you zip tie them, and then you tape over them, and then you add some more wires, and you do the same thing. And then just do that every time you put a wire in. Just repeat. Just been investigating the wiring situation with the car. Our loom will be separate and only powered and ignition and starter motor sort of side of things, but the car still has to drive on the road and have lights and horn and everything like that. It all still needs to work. So was fairly butchered. The wiring has been rerouted out inside the guard because it had probably had a lot of engine bay heat and funky headers and stuff all over it. It normally runs down through here, and then the battery's there, and then these join to the front loom, which I've pulled out also. That's for the headlights and all the rest of it. There's a lot of stuff that's just been cut off. We think this would have been an EFI 5 litre, like a Barra car, so a lot of this stuff's probably to do with the engine management system that doesn't exist anymore. So I'm going to also reroute these sort of main power supply stuff here. I'll pull that back, and we're going to put a bulkhead connector down under here somewhere, in through there somewhere, and that can just join up to that. There's a ton of weird stuff going on with it. There's fusible links inside the wiring loom that have melted already. That's what that is. It's kind of like it's like wire, but it's a fuse, and that was already melted, so I don't know what that does or whether it's important, but this part of it we're going to try and get inside the car once we've got all this stuff done and put it back down on its wheels and move it forward. We'll get inside. I'll try and pull this out if it's easy and just work on it on the bench. It's much easier to do it that way. and we'll strip out what we don't need, identify what we do need, which is a reliable ignition switch and a reliable starter signal, and we'll pick them out and use them for the Haltech loom. The rest will go in the bin.
We've pretty much finished in the boot now, so Al's just putting our battery tray in. We don't know what it's from, looks like some aftermarket sort of gear. One of the boys, Jody, had it lying around here. He was going to put it in his Honda, but we've got better plans for it. So Al's going to hot glue gun it to the floor, and then we'll go and get a battery that's a little bit smaller rather than the forklift battery that was in it. So it'll be sweet. There's also no fuel in the cell for the internet experts that tell us that we're going to kill each other.
Epic zip tie clamping specialist, Benny.
How good is it? You like it?
Yeah, I do like that.
Does a job.
I saw, actually seen people do that before with like ignition leads and stuff before.
Yeah, vac leads, ignition leads,
Yeah.
AN lines, whatever. It's pretty hard to try and get a clamp that does a -6, a -8 and a -10, so the zippy ties do the job. Got a same thing running all the way down through, so it just secures the line, stops them rubbing together.
So that's fuel system done now, eh?
Yep, we are completely finished the fuel cell.
And there's the
We've
rollover.
got our rollover breather box in the top now with a couple of rollover valves on the tank itself. But more importantly, inside the fuel tank is also done. So we've got our 3 Deechworks DW350 ILs. Last year, you guys may remember from watching the Cresta vs Dragweek version 1 episodes that we were cooking the fuel pretty badly by driving the car around. To circumvent that, this year both this car and the Cresta both have staged fuel pumps. So we've modified this, the fuel pump hat. This used to be both the power and the negative, but now these are actually both power, and I've put a ground post here. So we're now staging the pumps, so we run a single 350 IL all the time, and then Scotty at Haltech set the Cresta up so that when it comes onto boost, when you see 5 psi boost or 3,500 RPM, it switches the 2 secondary pumps on. We're actually going to run basically the exact same setup in this car because we're going to actually try and use my map more or less in this. Deliberately, we've basically carbon copied the Cresta so that we can exchange parts like ECUs and engines, turbos, transmissions, fuel pumps. Everything is basically exactly the same so that we've got less spares on the road. We'll split the spares up among both cars so that we're not running both cars out of one trailer.
So is that against the rules, Benny? You got to be careful there, don't
well, we're sharing spares between each other just like any other racer could at the pits potentially. Last year we gave other guys that we didn't know spares, so I don't really think it's not in the spirit of the event to share spares between 2 cars and then potentially swap stuff here and there.
Spares and fuel. I remember you were giving away fuel.
Yeah, we gave some guys some fuel last year.
You're a good dude, Benny.
Oh, it's all about the spirit of the adventure and having a good time.
Just mounting up the transmission coolers. There's 2 of them, as we discussed earlier. Heat is a big deal on Dragweek, and you need the transmission to stay cool. These are massive, but there's 2 of them. They've also got fans on them, which is controlled by the Haltech ECU via a temperature sensor in the pan of the Hughes automatic. So we're just sort of fiddling around with the way they're mounted. They're going to be like this, one on either side, leaning inwards.
Conveniently located nutserts there, Alan.
Yeah, I just nutserted the chassis rail to allow them to fit. And then we're going to put a little bracket off the bottom, off the front, this panel here that's heavily bashed to bits, but we'll panel beat it back into shape and put a little bottom support bracket onto it.
And do you run these series or parallel? How do you run them?
Benny runs them in series. You
Yep.
can run them in parallel, but there's different theories on why you would do one or the other to do with blockages and stuff, but we don't expect that to be an issue considering we've got all brand new everything.
Tomato.
Yep. 4.5 inches.
What's that in
That's
millimeters?
the only option we have. finished our cooler installation. It's all good, fit very nicely. So we're done with all our plumbing, which is good because we're a bit sick of it. Now we're going to throw the wheels back on and drop it back down on the ground so we can roll it forward and get inside the car so I can start sweating inside the car instead of outside and do some wiring work. So yay for me.
Like these wheels? Benny said he doesn't like them.
I like them. They got a little skull on them.
The other ones will look better.
Oh, that's a sticker on the back of the car. Maybe it's the wheel brand.
No, I think it's just the dude likes skulls.
Oh.
He also likes cutting holes and shit and
Maybe he just likes death.
not cleaning up the dags and
Not grinding paint.
all sorts of stuff. Just punched a hole through the firewall to run the wiring out in the same place that we did it on Jason's car. So before we do that, I've got to get rid of some of the stuff inside the car because this car is basically wired up. Everything manual, all these switches and crap. Nitrous, purge, trans brake, fans, fuel pumps. It's a freaking mess. Majority of these wires are the wires that you could see out in the engine bay. Just stuffed through the firewall, through a grommet hole.
That's actually not too bad compared to some of the stuff I've seen.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but I think if you get deeper, it's probably going to be the second worst thing in the world. Switches seem like a good idea, but the problem with switches is they need humans to operate them, and when you're trying to drive a drag car or whatever, you just don't remember to put fans on or all these things that you've got to think about when you're trying to drive the car. When it's a big, cranky, noisy, loud thing, you just forget. So that's why we use engine management systems. They don't forget. They don't care what the engine sounds like or whether they had a bad night's sleep. You just program it and it turns it on. If it gets to 95 degrees, it turns the fan on. If it gets to 90 degrees trans temp, it turns those fans on. It just does it. You don't have to think about it. That's why we do it. So all this junk's coming out, all these gauges, they're 100% not required. We've got a race pack dash from Haltech. That's just going to sit there. Everything's in that. We have trans brake button on the stick. We're going to have a dial control for torque management. We're going to get rid of this timing control thing here.
Yeah, what is that thing? I don't know.
And this timing control thing here. And
So you can actually, like, it's a dial to change your time.
more stuff for humans to not do correctly.
Yeah, right. So you're not keeping that monster tacho there then?
Actually, that looks pretty cool, actually. It's obviously been made for this model of Mustang, but it's just not required. The race pack does everything. It has one pair of wires, one CAN wire going to it, and everything that the ECU sees, the race packs will display to you. So it's just so much simpler to use an engine management system than to do this.
How good's that Momo steering wheel there?
This is a rare Momo from 1992 off a Subaru Legacy.
It's Italy, bro.
I actually bought this over on my suitcase because Benny reported that the steering wheel that was fitted to the car was from Bali, and you could go like this and snap it off.
And whose steering wheel is that one there?
That's mine.
Yours?
Yes, mine.
And whose car was it fitted to previously?
You stole it off me.
You gave it to me.
Put it on some filthy old Cressida.
You gave it to me.
So
Put it on the Cressida.
You took the Cressida to the dump, so
yeah,
it can't have been any
onto
good.
that wheel for my other car.
Yeah, this is mine.
It's mine, bro.
It's mine.
Okay. Can I have those expensive headphones back that I gave you?
What headphones?
Oh, is that how it works, huh?
That was a birthday present.
Yeah, that was a birthday present for me too.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
You just stole it. You just saw it and thought, I'm going to have that.
Cool. You love it.
Building a Christmas tree.
Now turn that goddamn fan around before I kill you.
What was that? Sorry, Alan?
Turn that goddamn fan back around before I kill you.
Oh, that's why it's so.
Yeah, every time he wants you to talk. That's why you got to get it over and done with.